Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being with us here today. We're going to talk about 2 or 3 things today, and then, of course, we are going to take your questions. We're going to talk about COVID numbers. We're going to talk about how hot it is. We're going to talk about the census, and we're going to talk about rental assistance, and then we're going to take your questions. So, with regard to COVID, yesterday, in the city of St. Louis, 61 cases were reported on Saturday. 81 cases were reported. These are new cases. Our currently hospitalized numbers are, yesterday was 279. You know that the hospitalization numbers run a couple of days behind. But 279 is a pretty, a number higher than we would like, and it has been running considerably higher than we'd like for about the last week or 10 days. 69 people are in ICU. This is in the region. 44 people are on ventilators. That's up 4 from Saturday. It's up 7 from Friday, which was 37. New patients admitted, 34, and patients discharged were 39. So we are continuing to run higher than we'd like. The other thing to note here is that for the cases reported last week through Sunday, 27.5% of them were in their 20s, 163 people in fact. 23% of them were in their 30s. So that is, what is that? That's 50% in the 20s and 30s, and then 7% in their teens, and the rest 14% in the 50s and 60s, and less higher up you get. So this trend of continuing to have most cases for people in their 20s, second most cases people in their 30s, this trend is continuing. That's a difficult situation, because although those folks may not get real sick, although some will, but for the most part, certainly the people that they expose by the people that they work with, the people that they live with, the people that they're around, are the older folks with underlying health conditions are likely to get pretty ill. The last thing I guess I want to mention to you about the statistics here is that, interestingly enough, if you look at the zip code map, what you will see here is that, oh shoot, what zip code is that? That's not on the zip code map, but if you want to look at this, or if you want to look it up on our website, what you'll see is the darker blue it is, the more cases. And so what we're seeing is, a month ago, we were seeing most of the cases being in North St. Louis. Now we're seeing even more cases in really across the city. So the spread has just continued. So that's COVID. We are considering making some additional restrictions, and we'll probably visit with you about that on Wednesday, unless the numbers get better here in the next couple of days. So that's COVID. We'll be happy to take your questions about that as soon as we're finished here. And then I said we talk a little bit about the heat advisory. There's not a lot to say, except that right now the feels like temperature is 107 outside. So now would be the time. Check on your neighbors. Very humid, very hot. Looks like this week is going to continue like that. Check on your neighbors, check on your friends. If someone needs assistance with utilities or with air conditioning, call and go online is preferable. Cool Down St. Louis. They can still help you. The city, we have funded cool down St. Louis with $3 million out of our CARES Act funding, which is considerably more than the rest of the region. And we have done that because we think it's so important that people are able to keep their utilities on. Having your utilities shut off is the first real blow to someone to staying in their housing. So we are funding utility assistance extensively. Jumping around a little bit here, the census. I know that months and months ago, you all received the census in the mail. It asks you to go online and fill out how many people lived in your household. You could have also called. So in the state of Missouri, so far, 63% of the households have responded. In the city of St. Louis, 50% have responded. Now, there's no area that needs to be counted more than the city of St. Louis. If you don't get counted, we end up losing federal funds. And those federal funds are what we are using for utility assistance, for rental assistance, for low-income housing, for emergency shelter. All of that is tied to the census. So this week, is it today, Jacob? Or
I think it starts this week, the door knockers, yeah.
Door knockers, census door knockers will begin this week. Hottest week we've had, sure, they're going to begin having to knock doors, but that's going to start this week. It may seem like a small thing, but it's really, really important that you answer the door for folks. And you can avoid all that by going online and reporting your family's numbers. So only 50%, 50.5%, running much less than the rest of the state. And so that's a problem. All right, last item before we go to questions. We've talked a lot about rental and mortgage assistance. We allocated $5.4 million to rental and mortgage assistance. We worked with the courts to make sure that we were processing as quickly as possible. Anyone who got some horns outside. I don't know if you can hear that or not. I think it's a ambulance or something. Okay, sorry. So we worked with the courts to try to process as quickly as possible anybody who's in the eviction pipeline. I think, that we have suspended evictions. The courts, Judge Burleson has suspended evictions until the 1st of September. If need be, hopefully that will still be extended. We're waiting on Congress to do the second, or actually third round of stimulus, and we're hopeful that something will get resolved on that this week. We thought it would have been resolved last week, frankly, but that did not happen. They're at a bit of a stalemate, which nothing new there, right? So the thing I want to report about the rental assistance is that today, the first case of rental assistance the check was actually cut. And it was an individual who was in the eviction pipeline. Those are being processed first. And everybody last week on the 7th, I think it was, this letter's dated the 6th, but on the 7th, everyone received an email that said, hey, we've received your application, we're processing it. There are about 3,000, this was last week's number, there are about 3,000 city residents that had applied. About 1,500 St. Louis County residents applied. We're sending those to St. Louis County, hoping that they will have a similar program. And you will hear from us soon. So that is, everybody should have gotten that email. Check your spam or your junk folder if you've applied and you did not get this letter. This went out to a lot of people, so of course it may be going directly to your junk folder if that's the case. And so we did get your applications and we have begun processing them. What phone number is this?
For rental, if they have questions.
If you do have questions, best thing to do is to email stlcitycares@stlouis-mo.gov. That's STLCITYCARES at stlouis-mo.gov. I think we'll post that, won't we, in the comments?
Mhm.
Yeah, so in case you didn't get that quite written down, it'll be posted in the comments. Okay. Do we have any questions?
Couple questions, Mayor. Question from Mary Ann today. You mentioned that you're considering additional restrictions.
Mhm.
Can you expand on that and what we might be looking at?
Yeah, I can't really expand on that now. We're in conversations. We're trying to look at these numbers very closely, but the restrictions that are considering would likely reduce some capacity guidelines. So beyond that, I'm not gonna speculate today. We're just working with the doctor and working with other folks to really try to figure out how to reduce the spread, especially among 20 and 30-year-olds.
Couple of other COVID sort of related questions. So we get a lot of questions about playgrounds. For people who see that the caution tape continues to get torn down, who should they be contacting? This is from Allison, concerned about a playground in Soulard.
Allison, you can text us the name of not text, but put in the comments the name of the playground or where it is. We can look at it like that, or call 622-4800, which is the Citizen Service Bureau line. Be as specific as you can. You know, you can either call that phone number, or if you go online, you can report any complaint online. Just go to the city's website and, right on the front page is like make a complaint or service request, and you can request it in that way. But let me just say, playgrounds are still closed for anybody who's wondering. We know the tape keeps getting taken down. It's Parks Department, Recreation Department are pretty busy this time of year, cutting grass, doing all those kinds of things. And so we are balancing how we spend our time, but don't take your kids to the playgrounds.
Question from Brian. Where and how can I report businesses that I see are violating your mask orders and social distancing requirements?
622-4800 or online, city, file a complaint. Is there any, I think that's really the best way, because that way the complaint gets recorded and goes into the health department. And they will follow up. They have been following up with all kinds of businesses, trying to verify the complaint first. Sometimes you get competitors that might make a complaint. Sometimes you get unhappy employee or former employee who might make a complaint. We're not trying to be punitive about this, but we've got to get compliance with the mask wearing. I mean, I see it myself when I'm out and about. Don't wear a chin strap. Wear your mask over your nose and mouth.
A COVID-related question regarding the election from last week. How did it go with all of the changes, and what is the city doing to make sure that the even more important November general election is safe and smooth for voters?
So, honestly, last Tuesday went pretty well from our discussions with the election board. Not too many glitches, a lot of people wearing masks. Well, you had to wear a mask to get in. A lot of folks that were social distancing. So I guess my conclusion is that voters are good rule followers there. Now, we know that in November we'll probably have double the number of voters, because it's a presidential election. We always do. So the election board is gearing up even more to allow people to socially distant. It was a beautiful day last Tuesday. It was not even like an August day. We did have, the voter turnout was right at 40%. A pretty high percentage I think about 11,000 votes were absentee or mail-in ballots. I would expect there'll be even more of that in November. And of course, the controversy about making sure you mail your ballot in time. But, presidential elections are always a big deal, and there's a lot of people voting, and this one will not be any different than that, and so we will continue to make sure people can socially distance, have to wear masks, and those who want to can vote either absentee or by mail-in ballot.
Cindy's question, Mayor, has to do with hotels that the city got to house members of the unhoused community. What's the status of the St. Louis shelter hotels, and can that program possibly continue after the pandemic is over?
So, Cindy, that's a good question. The status is that we still have several hotels. Let me think here. 2 hotels, as well as a number of other spaces, Little Sisters of the Poor, and some churches that are providing emergency shelter. It's a very, very expensive way to provide shelter, and we're frankly looking for additional options. We're looking at all kinds of things. We are asking the region to join with us because this is not a St. Louis City problem. Many of the people that we are housing in our emergency shelters are not from the city of St. Louis. They are from St. Louis County. They are from Illinois. They are from Peoria. And I use this anecdotally because I've spoken with many of the people, and they'll tell you where they're from or where they last lived. We really need for the region to step up and help with this. So I don't know if you live in the city of St. Louis or not, but certainly if you don't, if you live in a municipality or somewhere else in the region, please speak with your top elected official about what they're doing to help out with this, because this is not just a St. Louis City issue. We're doing our very best to provide shelter, food, counseling, and all the other services that folks that are do not have their own house need, with the goal of getting them into their own housing, their own apartment, because everybody is better off with their own shelter.
Question on COVID and a statement. Question and statement from Andrew. Why considering more restrictions when cases appear to be at least going down in Missouri and St. Louis? Don't punish people who are incapable of staying away from high-risk folks.
Incapable of staying away from high-risk folks.
I think I'm reading that
I'm
right.
not sure exactly what that means, but this is not about trying to be punished. In the state of Missouri, our cases are going down a little bit, but our positivity rate is still pretty high. If you look on our website, you'll see that it has been going up. That means how many positive cases out of the number of people tested. Our goal is not to punish anyone, but our goal is to tamp down the spread hopefully without putting anyone out of business.
Tanya's question, Mayor, is about the rental assistance. How much of the $5.4 million has actually been allocated to stop evictions and foreclosures?
All of it. Now, when you say allocated, that doesn't mean that it's allocated to an individual, but we have a number of partners, about a dozen partners, who have been allocated funds and who cases have been assigned to, and they're resolving those funds. But yes, virtually all of it. Some of it's going for mediation, legal assistance to help people work out things with their landlords, that sort of thing, things to prevent evictions. But the vast majority of it is allocated just for actual direct assistance.
Question from Jerry, Mayor. Has a decision been made about the recommendation to reduce capacity for large venues to 50%?
A final decision has not been made on that.
That's it for new questions today, Mayor.
That's all for new questions? We're going to end early?
You can keep talking.
No, thank you all for being with us today. We'll be back on Wednesday to talk more about COVID, to talk about things that are going on in the city. If there's a subject that we haven't covered that you want us to cover, give us a nudge on that, and we'll try try to cover that question. One of the things I think I'm going to talk about on Wednesday for anybody who's interested is, you know, we've had a vacancy program for the last 3 years, and we have begun, we began 3 years ago taking down the worst first, the worst buildings first, buildings with no backs, buildings with no roofs. And so on Wednesday, I'll give you a little report on that. We've taken down a lot of buildings over the last 3 years, and you know, while I hate to lose any building, you know, because I love our old building stock, if a building has been sitting there vacant for 10, 20, 30 years, nothing good happens in a vacant building. And actually, a lot of bad stuff happens in a vacant building. And so in terms of trying to make the environment better for people who live on that block or around that area, we've taken down a number of buildings. And I'll talk about that on Wednesday. So thank you all for being with us today. Appreciate it. Wear your mask. Try to stay socially distanced. And we'll try to tamp down this spread again. Thank you all.